My name's Dylan with Espresso Outlet. If any of you guys have any commercial equipment that you need, make sure to look up Espresso Outlet. We also have home equipment as well. And today we're doing another podcast with Anthony with Press On Mobile Coffee. Give us a little bit of information about yourself.
For sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised in Topeka, Kansas, youngest of 15 kids, and, moved around early age of 22, early 20s. Yeah. To Arizona. Met my wife out there in Arizona. After about 10 years, we moved to Oregon for a year, actually. And that's where we built our first coffee trailer, was in Springfield, Oregon. We were there for a year and then moved over to Post Falls, Idaho. Been there since actually just coming up on 3 years now. So, and this is kind of where we decided to do the building of Press on Mobile Coffee full time.
So you said youngest of 15 kids?
15 kids. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
How many
Catholic
brothers?
family.
How many sisters?
I got 9 brothers and 5 sisters. It's actually
Wow.
my dad's birthday today too. So he would have, he's passed away now 16 years ago, but thank you. He would have been 83 today.
Jeez,
Yeah.
15.
Yep.
I have my 2 sisters and a stepbrother.
Okay, right on. There you go. Hey, family's family,
That's right. So what got you started into coffee? I know I read, and I'll show here on your Instagram, and you also have your website. Sure. What got you started into coffee?
Mostly just early on. I've been drinking coffee since, a lot of people don't believe me, but like I was maybe 4 years old or younger, when I was younger, my mom would drink coffee, I'd just be sitting, next to her, and she started making me coffee. So, which is kind of crazy because originally I started out drinking black coffee with just sugar in it, which you wouldn't think kids would drink.
Really?
Yeah. But then, of course, later on, I started added cream, and then you get into all these other drinks, and then you kind of come full circle and a lot of times go back to black coffee or straight espresso. But so I've been, introduced to it at a pretty young age. And then later on, I've always just, drink coffee as my daily morning routine, as many do. And then it was in I think it was my sophomore year of college. I took a job working actually at Starbucks just through the holiday season, through Christmas, and just to kind of get my feet wet in the actual commercial world of coffee. And that was fun, good experience. And then ever since, and I was like, I think I, want to do a coffee shop eventually.
So you wake up, got to get a cup of coffee. What's your go-to?
Yeah, for sure. You mean like what I actually drink?
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll just do my drip coffee pot, but if I'm doing espresso, I have this Gaggia Classic at home. I love it. It's a really hands-on machine, but really cool machine. So a lot of times I'll do kind of like a cortado, but a little bit more milk than normal. I would say probably like 2/3 milk and to espresso, but I actually do it as a breve though too. Occasionally I'll do a little bit of a sweetener in there, so a little bit of cane syrup or regular sugar. So
All right. I'm
keep it
a
simple.
I'm a straight espresso guy normally, but I'll do
Yeah,
an Americano. I like milk-based drinks, but they kind of hurt my stomach, so I don't drink them too much.
for sure, for sure.
But so when we're talking about, so let's walk everybody through a day in the life of Press On. You have an event. What does startup, tear down at the event? What does all that look like for you guys?
Sure. So I do things kind of like you're talking about earlier, how you prep, a lot the night before. I do very similar. So I try to do as much as possible the night before or the morning of, just so when I get to my location, it's an easy setup. I actually started when I moved to Idaho. So I didn't do it on my first build in Oregon, but I do a off-grid system now with batteries and a propane espresso machine. So my setup is actually really simple. I don't have to deal with starting up a generator anymore, although I have that option if I need to, or I can even plug in too. But so basically, when I get on site, I turn on my propane tank, propane espresso machine, which takes about 30 minutes to heat up. So not too much longer, honestly, than an electric machine. And then my battery system, I just turn it on, turn on the AC part of it, where everything's already plugged into it, so it's ready to go. And then from there, I can start serving within about 30 minutes. So it's pretty simple. I mean, probably like most trucks or trailers, you have stuff stored away, syrups and cups and stuff, so they're not flying off the shelves. So I'm just getting that stuff out, and it honestly takes me maybe 15 minutes to set everything up, and then the other 15 minutes just waiting on the machine to heat up.
So how long does it take to prep the night of and in the morning before you take off to get to the event?
Sure thing. Usually I'll have my fridge plugged in when I'm at home anyway. So I'll have, if I have extra milk stored in my fridge in the garage, then I'll just transfer those into the fridge if they're not already there from like the night before. Maybe if I'm doing cold brew, that takes a little time, of course, but I would say tops maybe 2 hours the night before, and then in the morning is literally just hooking up the trailer and heading out. Sometimes I'll hook up the trailer the night before just so I'm ready to go, but it's not really a long process, honestly.
So what I see your website. What's the trailer look like that you use now?
Currently, I'm using it's a 1975 horse trailer, a little 2-horse trailer. So it's
Okay.
very, very compact. It's only 9 feet long on the interior, at yeah, max 9 feet, and just under 6 feet wide. So it's you can still fit. Sometimes my wife and I are in there. She'll run like the POS system, and I'll do drinks or vice versa, and we can work in there fine. We just gotta like stay in our space and just kind of swivel.
How much
But
work did you have to do to that trailer after you purchased it?
this one was a really cool setup. So the guy I purchased it from was here in Post Falls, Idaho. He actually originally bought it and started converting it for a mobile bar for a lady in Tennessee, but she had backed out. So it was still completely bare inside. He just painted the interior white. Still had the original like 2x6 horse floor in it. And then he did a little bit of welding on the exterior and painted the exterior and did like obviously the photos, but there's like a burnt wood look on the outside. So he did that. So basically, the exterior was done. The interior still needed done. It was actually, I maybe spent a week tops to get that thing up and running. It actually did not take long at all. Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. So because it's a more narrow horse trailer, I mean, horse trailers are generally more narrow anyway, so being less than 6 feet wide. I got utility cabinets from Lowe's, which are generally a bit thinner. They're like maybe 18 inches in depth versus a traditional cabinet of like 24 inches. So that saved a lot of space by doing that. So I only have cabinets on one side of it.
So are you pressed on countertop space for your espresso machine then?
Pretty much. So my espresso machine is in the front of the horse trailer, like where the saddle would normally
Oh,
go. Or actually, I think that's technically where they would like put feed for horses. So that's flat right now. I have a hand sink on the left, and then my espresso machine on the right of that. And then basically about 5 foot of counter space that I use. My fridge is under counter. Then that counter space is for my grinder, my syrups, my cups, and I have a airpot brewer, which I really like. But honestly, I don't do a lot of drip coffee. I use it mostly just for the hot water. So
so do you have your espresso machine bolted onto the countertop then?
it's actually not bolted currently. So I'm actually pretty just cautious when I drive. It shifts a little bit, but I mean, if I were to, someone wants to buy this one and I sold it to them, I would let them know, hey, either I recommend bolting this down or I'll do it for you, just because you don't know how other people drive. And so a lot of people, they're just kind of careless, and so it'll just shift around a lot if you are hitting bumps or whatever.
I would have so much anxiety driving a trailer with the espresso machine just sitting there. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't shift enough to where it seems like it's going to fall over ever.
No, because it's pretty much right on the edge of the counter too. I mean, there's plenty of space behind it, but it's 160 pounds, so it takes a lot. I mean, I see it maybe move like I would say maybe an inch or two in one direction or the other, and that's just about it. So, and that was even actually we drove and did an event 2 weekends ago in Lewiston, Idaho, which is about 2.5 hours south of us, and that's all that it shifted through in that whole drive. So,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Do you
My
keep all of your machines in the trailer at all times?
yeah, my grinder though, and I have a Rentilio K65 grinder, and then my airpot brewer though. Those I just have eye bolts into the side of the trailer, and then I just use bungees for those, and that holds them in place just fine.
So during the winter time, it gets cold there where you're at, right? I
Oh
forget.
yeah, for sure.
So how
Yeah.
do you keep if you keep the espresso machine in there all year round, how do you keep the trailer from freezing overnight?
Yep, I actually have one of those little. I guess it's like a space heater, little square ones on wheels, and it has a set thermostat on it. So I just put it on its lowest setting, which is 50 degrees, and then it automatically kicks on and off when it needs to regulate the temperature inside there. So I have it basically pointing towards my espresso machine, and all my plumbing air system is in one area, so it's keeping all that warm. And then I do drain my tanks, of course, and drain my boiler if I'm not going to be using it for a while. So
So do you park it inside of like a garage, a pole barn, or is it just outside?
No, it's actually just outside. So we rent a duplex here in Post Falls, and so that's where we build everything too. And so it's just parked right next to our duplex in our fenced-in area. And I have a cover that I put on it too if I'm not using it for a while. So that kind of
Now,
helps to maintain the heat too.
is that an oil? Is it oil based heater, space heater?
No, it's actually just the electric ones. Yeah, it's like maybe 1,500 watts. So you do see a little bit of a increase on your electric bill, but it's honestly not too bad. Just make sure if you're going to go that route to get one that has the thermostat that automatically kicks on and off. Otherwise, it's just going to run constantly. So
So for those of them watching, how much is it normally for one of those space heaters?
you can get them for maybe 70 to 100 bucks on Amazon, and in Lowe's about the same price, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, I actually got mine from a thrift store for like 15 bucks. So
Oh wow, that was a steal.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's got a remote too. So if I don't want to go outside into the trailer, I can just, turn it on or off from being inside the house, which is cool.
So you have an electric hookup in there, right? In your trailer. Is that what you
I
use to
do.
run the space heater?
Yeah. So I actually have, are you familiar with the company out of, I think they're out of Seattle called cafeworks.com?
Yep.
Yeah, so I have their for that was one thing that made this horse trailer build super simple is I have their 50 amp panel. So it's got all the breakers and outlets in one panel. So I have that mounted in there, and then of course it's wired for generator if you want, or shore power. So my heater's plugged into that panel, and then I just plug my extension cord right into the exterior shore power outlet.
Yeah, that's one thing that I need to do because my trailer is the 50 amp plug on the outside, and I
Yeah,
have it converted. So there's a converter to convert it to the 110. But
right.
the moment I plug it into the outside or even into my garage, it blows the circuit right away with nothing,
Oh, for sure. Oh, with nothing on even. Oh, that's
nothing
interesting.
out. Yeah, so I don't
Okay.
know.
Wow.
I don't know if it's because it's a 50 amp and not a 30 amp. But
Super
it's
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to have something because over like tomorrow, for instance, when we have our event, normally we'll get the trailer from the pole barn, bring it here before
Yeah.
like the night of, and then we'll have it here. We'll wake up and then we can just get everything ready and leave because I don't
Okay.
like to go get it all, bring it here the morning of. It's just a lot going on, especially when you have to be somewhere at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we can't do that right now in the wintertime because it wouldn't make any sense because it would freeze. So everything in there would freeze, and there's really no way to hook up a space heater even outside
Yeah.
unless the door open. But that would defeat the purpose.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I do actually. So in the wintertime, it definitely slows down for events up here. I mean, we'll still do some, hired events for like Christmas and there's like trunk or treats, for Halloween and so forth. But usually it slows down quite a bit. So at that point, when I notice that I'm not really getting many inquiries for actual events, then I do take my espresso machine out and I just put it in my garage where it actually maintains temperature in here, just as an extra precaution. So that way, if I don't want to run my, heater in there, for 3 months or however cold it is, just saves on, some electricity.
So what's if you had to give somebody the best advice? What's the best promotional advice for you for your company to get your word out there? What's the best way to do that?
For somebody else that wanting to start a truck or
Mhm.
trailer. Honestly, in your community, word of mouth is huge, of course. Friends just spreading the words, family spreading the word, and then doing like a soft opening just to kind of get your name out there. But other than that, Facebook has actually been really, really great. The Mobile Coffee Business Owners Group got a lot of traction from that. And then surprisingly, doing just local events too, once you're set up, after your soft opening. A lot of people I've booked other events from coming up, and they got farmers markets that they're setting up themselves, and so they just reach out and ask, hey, you want to come set up here? So yeah.
Are you guys a part of the farmers market in your area?
We actually, let's see. No, we didn't do any farmers markets here yet. There's maybe 2, 3 other coffee trailers or vans here as well. But we've done like kind of more private events. Like there was a horse ranch and cattle ranch here. I ended up doing like actually a wedding venue technically, but they had since moved. But when we first moved here, they did this big kind of just like a vendor fair on their property. It's like 80 vendors. That was the first one we did when we moved here. So we'll do a lot more private ones like that. Farmers markets are good too, but generally you got to pay. Um, I think we had to pay at ours too, but it was a small fee. But the farmers markets, yeah, they're great, but there's a lot of other, I wouldn't say a lot, but some competition with coffee too. So people that have been doing it for a while, so they kind of already have their foot in the door. So they're good, and the option is there. But I kind of like doing just other side events for the most part.
So do you and your wife have any workers that work for you and sell coffee, or is it just you and your wife that serve the coffee?
Yeah, just me and my wife right now. We've thought about hiring some other employees, or possibly just to run it for us, while I'm working on builds and so forth. But we just haven't really made that leap yet.
So from starting now and any expansion in the future, do you want a brick and mortar? Are you looking to do more mobile?
So yeah, that's kind of the way we went mobile to begin with. Is I've always wanted, coffee shops since the early age I was mentioning. Actually, so I have a big background in skateboarding too. So I kind of always wanted to do this hybrid like skate shop, coffee shop kind of
Oh,
thing.
that'd be
But
awesome.
yeah, maybe later on in the future. So, but that's always been in my mind since around maybe like age 16. But so brick and mortar has always been a great, thought of mine to like, I just think it'd be awesome that environment. I always love going to coffee shops. It's just good vibes, the smell, whatever music is playing, just hanging out and doing your thing. But so the mobile option, of course, was way cheaper than taking the leap on, brick and mortar, especially if I mean, it's one thing if you have the money to buy the property, but leasing, depending on where you're at, leasing can be insane. Like here in Post Falls, it's not so bad for commercial real estate, but just 5 minutes away, we have Coeur d'Alene, which is, a tourist hotspot. And, you might be lucky to find something that's $3,000 a month. That's pretty small. But it's like, well, you're already, in the negative, for X amount of months or years if you're signing into a lease. So mobile is just a much safer bet, lower startup cost, of course. And we were fortunate enough to be able to cash flow it. And then, from there, it's like, well, worst case scenario, one location doesn't work out, go on to the next.
So I see a lot of people on the Facebook groups and just in general that if you any YouTube video you watch of a mobile coffee business or even just a regular food truck, a lot of
Mhm.
people ask, should I go the route of financing to get my trailer or should I wait until I can pay it off? Obviously, that's always the best option because then you don't owe
Sure.
interest on anything. What kind of advice would you give to somebody starting out that wants to do mobile?
Wants to do mobile. I mean, cash flow, like you mentioned, is I definitely recommend it. And if you have to start small, I would say just start small with it until you can gain a little more cash flow. Whether it's like a rolling cart or just like a tent setup. There's for farmers markets, the tent setups do really well, especially if you're just doing like cold brew and Italian sodas, things like that. You can make your money very quickly doing those. Um, yeah, it's we were fortunate enough with our cash flow because when we moved from Arizona, we sold our house, so we had a good chunk of equity built up, so we were able to buy our vintage trailer. And me, I have a background in construction too, so I was able to do everything myself. Yeah, I mean, financing, there's always that option, of course, and it is tempting because even me in the beginning, like early on, just because it's like, oh, you could be up and running so fast. But yeah, in the long run, I feel like you're setting yourself up for success if you can cash flow it, just because you're coming out swinging with no payments to worry about other than, getting out there and taking in the payments, really. So
Yeah. So how important is it being mobile to have a limited menu when starting out as opposed to having a lot of choices in general on your menu?
yeah, I actually do that very thing. I just keep it super minimal. I have maybe 5 or 6 flavors for my espresso based drinks, milk based drinks, and then some like fruit flavors for like Italian sodas and so forth. But I think when you do the smaller, just fewer options, it's better because you can kind of really hone in on those and specialize in making those, the perfect combination. There are so many coffee kiosks up here, the drive-through ones that just have like 40, 50, 60, sometimes 100 flavors. I'm just like, that's just too many options. And honestly, like the fewer options too, it's people are going to pick something either way if they want coffee. So just specialize in what you have and make it good. And, I think that's more important than just offering everything.
So it kind of depends on the region where you live, but what is what is Presson's most popular menu item and why do you
Mhm.
believe that is?
It's actually, and I don't know, maybe it's just because it's the name is unique from everything else on the menu. But I have my drink, which is just called My Way, and that's kind of like what I mentioned, what I drink in the mornings, which is basically like my almost like a breve cortado, but with a little extra, like 2/3 milk versus, like a half ratio. So most people, they see that, and it's a smaller drink. It's probably one of my, I would say, a lower cost item on the menu anyway, but people are interested in what I like to drink, and so every single time someone's ordered that, whether it's hot or sometimes they'll get it iced, they come back and they're like, they walk away and 5 minutes later they're back like, this is amazing. So yeah, that's actually a huge one. So I don't know, to me it's just because it has the perfect combination of sweetness and coffee. You get a lot of the coffee flavor coming through, and then yeah, a little bit of sweetness. So it just, yeah, it's good coffee. And then other than that, I mean, probably the biggest requested one besides that is just regular mochas. That's a
So
big one.
so think back to when you first started to now. What has
Hmm.
been at an event? What has been the most challenging experience that has happened, and how did you overcome that?
Let's see, challenge experience. Well, when we first moved here, we did that event that had like 80 different vendors. We were the only coffee truck, which was cool. But at the time, was I running my single group? Yeah, I was. I was running Nueva Seminelli single group, and it wasn't even the volumetric. It was the semi-auto.
Hmm.
And it was nuts. So the market didn't open till 10, but we got there and ready to go at 9 for other vendors and so forth. And it
Everybody
was
started
just
coming in.
slammed from 9 o'clock till 4 when it closed. We had 10 people in line the whole day. Luckily, so it was me and my wife. My wife was kind of just walking around with her kids, and then I was like, hey, you got to get over and give me a hand. So luckily my sister showed up. She lives in Spokane, which is just like 30 minutes from us, and she's got a barista experience, and so she jumped right in. She brought me extra milk because I had like 6 gallons, and did not think I was going to go through that. I went through that in like maybe 2 hours, if that. So blew through that. So she showed up, brought me extra product, jumped right in and helped me out. And I mean, the challenging part of that was just not having basically the backup, like an extra employee. Luckily my sister was a saving grace. So going into big events like that, I would definitely recommend having somebody basically either on call or already planning just to have an extra person to hire in, because like I don't think I took a break the whole day. It was just nonstop. Like I just went for it
And,
for
and the
8 or 9 hours.
problem is most people, like, we don't have a bathroom in our trailer. It was just
Same,
too much
yeah,
work to put a bathroom in, and just a lot of code, a lot of different codes that you have to have for the bathroom.
yep,
And for us, it's hard for me to, I don't know about you, but it's hard for me to drink a lot of water or eat, because I mean, number one, I'm the only barista. So
yep.
no one else knows how to make the coffee but me. And if I drink, and I mean, there's a line of 12 people, I can't go to the bathroom. And here I am doing the dance to try
Oh
to make
yeah,
the rest of the coffees. Um, do you get enough water while you're working?
definitely not. Yeah, no. So it's like I think that same morning too, and this is usually the case when I'm doing bigger events, is like I go to make myself a coffee, and as soon as I start to make a coffee, when I open my window, it's like, nope, that coffee's on the back burner. I maybe get a coffee like 4 hours into it if I get a slight bit of breathing room, but not usually.
So at least for us, when we're at an event, there'll be times where there's 15 minutes that goes by, we have nobody. And then
Yeah.
one person goes by and gets it, and all of a sudden you have 12 people in line.
Oh yeah,
Or
super weird.
yeah, or vice versa, there'll be no people. And then we have a pretty big, like, our trailer has a pretty big window, and we did that on purpose so people can get a better experience when coming up to the
Yeah.
trailer, instead of like a smaller window where they can't really see, it's kind of closed off. And I
Hmm.
feel like the moment I start just making a drink just for myself or for my wife that's working with us, I'll start making it, and all of a sudden we'll have people, and I'm just like, "Where'd you guys come from?"
Seriously, yeah. You just have to sit there and pretend. Like if it's slow, just pretend you're making a drink and they'll show up.
They'll just
I love
smell it and
the
be ready.
Oh yeah, I love the big window idea. That's actually my original trailer I wanted to build early on. I wanted this massive like window just because I wanted it to feel more like a cafe, like where you just walk in, it's really inviting. So but the trailer we found, of course, originally wasn't, it was a vintage trailer, so we just kind of had to do what we could work with. But yeah, the big window's great, very inviting.
What I wanted to do was the big window that we have on the side, and then we
Hmm.
have that ramp down door that we put the floor tile. So the floor tile in the trailer goes vertical, and then to give it more of like a dimension and separate the floor and the wall, because we couldn't leave the wall the way that the trailer was for health reasons, for health code, for our violations. for our codes. So we did the floor horizontally. And so when we put it down, there's a floor, which helps because then it's easy to clean because we walk in and out that ramp door all the time. The
Oh
one
yeah,
thing I wanted to do was, since we were doing the floor design like that on the ramp down door, we were going to actually build a wall right there to where you could actually, there was a door and then there was another window to where they could order here and then walk over, go up the ramp and grab their order. But the only issue with that is the floor. I mean, because it's a ramp door, if it's slippery or anything, and someone falls, that's a lot of liability for you
for
having them
sure.
walk up.
Yeah, definitely. I love that idea. And actually, the last build I just completed for a guy in Texas, it was a cargo trailer, and so yeah, he had the ramp door as well. So like you mentioned, I just continued the floor onto the ramp as well, and it turned out really cool. And actually looks, I thought it was going to look weird when the door was closed, but it
That's what
actually
I
looks really
thought.
cool because it's like this wood looking wall because it's rolled sheet vinyl, but
Okay.
it's still wood look, so it looks really cool when it's closed. And then yeah, they have the option to where again, I don't think I'd recommend it when it's like rainy because of the slip hazard, but so they'll actually have when they're serving, if there's room, they'll have that door down, and then I have part of their counter where their espresso machine sits on. Actually, the back of the espresso machine and counter faces that door so that people can walk up. And then there's still a walkway to walk in the trailer there. It just I built a drop down counter too, kind of like a bar back system. So actually, really cool for walking up right there.
Interesting. Yeah, whenever it's
Yeah,
cold or if it's cold and rainy, I wouldn't have it open. But if it was nice out, you obviously, as long as you have a good air conditioner, that'd be awesome because then you get the view from both sides. So if somebody's just
oh
walking,
yeah,
they can see you from that side and this side. Because anytime someone can see more visually, they're more inclined to stop by to see what you have.
for sure. Yeah, I definitely don't think having a line is bad. Of course, it can be to the point where it's too long, someone just doesn't want to wait. But when you have, 5 to 10 people in line, I think that's great for business, actually.
So for logo design on a trailer, if anybody hasn't seen your trailer, what did you do for advertisement logo wise on your trailer? And
Hmm.
how much do you think that someone should spend on doing some kind of logo on their trailers?
Sure. So right now, first and foremost, our horse trailer we didn't put our logo or anything on it just yet because it is for sale. So that's kind of where we're at right now. When we build a trailer, if it's not for someone in particular, we'll build one and we'll use it to vend, and then so it's turnkey ready, and then we'll sell it. So as of right now, we haven't been putting our logos on the builds, but in the past, we've actually used fast signs for our logo. They're actually pretty affordable. The very first trailer we used them, and we had our logo was maybe I want to say it was about 24 by 24 roughly. We had it on two sides of the trailer, so like on the door on the serving side, and then on the back side, the driver's side. And then we had a pretty good sized logo that just said "press on" the front and the back of the trailer as well. And I think that was like maybe $350, and that was even for them installing it too. It went on really easy. I dropped off the trailer one day after the design was done, and they had it on there within like an hour, and I came back by and picked it up. So it wasn't a very elaborate logo. It was pretty simple. So of course, if you got more colors, I mean, it could probably the price can vary a bit, but yeah, I would say probably. I mean, you can get a decent logo for under $500.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was doing some because we're still trying to figure out what we're gonna do with our trailer because we don't have our logo anywhere on the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it looks like we're kind of carpenters sketchily serving something out of this cargo trailer with a window. So unless they know who we are, we have a sign that I made. It's a wood sign that has our logo on it, and it says like, "Oh, coffee this way" with our logo. But
Sure.
I was looking into doing a wrap, but the bad thing about a wrap is they don't warranty a wrap because if you don't take care of it, it could be bad in 6 months. It could be
Yeah,
for 10 years. But I have a lot of quotes and they were like 4 to 5 grand just for the low or just
it's
for the wrap.
expensive. Yeah, very expensive. Yeah, I'm a fan. I mean, I like the idea of a wrap, but it's probably I would recommend a wrap for something like a Sprinter van, like one of those camper style vans,
Yep.
maybe even a box truck. But when it comes to like custom trailers like yours or a vintage trailer, I think logos are probably the better way to go, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely something that a lot of people have questions on. But just starting out, I think that it's important to number one, get your quality good because everybody's
Hmm.
going to want the same quality. As long as you can match that and have a good quality product, you're going to get a lot more people than spending 5 grand right away on a logo.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it will come in time, definitely. You can do as simple as what is called like the Sinacade signs, the like the A-frame ones.
Oh,
So
yep.
we have one of those for our current horse trailer, and it's just got Velcro on both sides. And one side has our basically our logo and our name, and the other side is the menu. And those were super cheap to print. Trying to remember, we might have got those from like Vistaprint for like I think they were $5 a piece. They're super cheap to print on. They're not super durable, that's why they're cheap. But I mean, you can get quite a few of them for at $5 a piece. So
Yeah, that's definitely good tips. So, have you ever had a time where you were working in your trailer at an event and something broke down?
yes, actually, that was like my second event when I did here in Idaho. There was a kind of like a petting zoo. This guy and his wife, they had this. It was called the Farm at Winter Station, and it was just like this small petting zoo type deal they were doing. They had quite a bit of land, but they had chickens, turkeys, rabbits, and they did this like homeschool event for like these homeschool families. And so we reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'd be happy to come out and serve coffee." And I didn't do a minimum or anything. I just, was like coming out and serving people and go from there just to kind of get my name out there, but then help them too. But I think it was maybe this is when I was still running a generator, but maybe an hour into serving, my water pump kept going out on me. Like it was super hit or miss. Why? Like all of a sudden it would work and then it would. I had no idea why. And it was. I still don't think I actually ever figured out what was going on with it. So I ended up just replacing the water pump. But it got to the point where someone would come up to order coffee. I tried to make a drink. I said, "Sorry, my water pump's being really finicky right now. Come back in like 5 minutes." And 5 minutes later, they come back and it would work. And yeah, luckily there wasn't a huge amount of people there, but it was frustrating just because I wasn't expecting, of course. And they want something hot to drink, but it didn't work out that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people, that's like their biggest fear when they do mobile or any kind of business. They're afraid that if I don't have a backup and I do something, what do I do? And I tell them, don't be afraid to tell your customers what's going on, because
Yeah.
they're gonna feel sympathy for you. They're not gonna be mad. I mean, obviously it's unfortunate for you, but a lot of people are understanding, and the coffee community is pretty nice.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's actually one out of, I mean, knock on wood, since then I haven't had an issue with my water pump. That's something I would consider having an extra one on hand because they're generally like $100 for, like a C-Flow or a flow jet. And if you do your plumbing correctly, where you have shut off valves, if and something happens to it, you can shut those valves off to kill water and you can swap them out probably within about 30 minutes if you really had to. So,
Yeah, I was at an event one time with my Linea, because we do everything with our semi-automatic machines. So kind of like what you were talking about when
oh
you
yeah.
for me, it's just like second nature. I would recommend a volumetric machine for sure. It makes your life so much easier, but for me, I've just been so used to it. And I remember being at a event. It was a boutique, and I was serving, and all of a sudden my pressure gauge was like all the way down, like zero pressure. So I had a line of like 6 people, which wasn't
Oh
a lot, but I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's not good. So
man.
I just remember, and this was like maybe my fourth event. So I was just like, well, I have to be honest because I can't make their drink, and they paid me to go to that event. So
Oh man.
I was like, unfortunately, I have to figure out what's going on with my espresso machine. Please come back in like 10-15 minutes. I'm going to try to get this resolved as soon as possible. And it was super weird. I undid the top part of the machine. I had this happen before. It was like a little tiny piece of I use third wave water, so a little tiny particle got on a sensor, and then all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
it overfilled the steam valve, or the steam boiler, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like really bad. So I went to go fix it. And when I went to go turn it back on, the pump kicked on like it was starting back up again. And I really didn't do anything. I just kind of moved something. And all of a sudden, like water was squirting everywhere underneath my machine, coming out of my power cord. I was like,
Whoa.
oh my gosh. So I ended up calling the event. Like I couldn't do it anymore, obviously. So
Oh, bummer.
I called a technician, and he came out, came in. I didn't do anything besides turn the machine off. And then he came, I think 2 days later to my house to fix it after paying like the travel fee and everything. And all of a sudden he turns it on. It worked completely normal, like nothing ever happened.
No way.
Yeah. So I have no idea whatever happened. And he
What
said
was that, a single group or two group?
single group. It was the Linea Mini.
Linear Mini? Okay, yeah. Wow, that's super weird. Do you think so? You said there was like a little particle stuck onto. You
Well,
think it had something to do with it?
that was the first time, or that was the first time that happened. That when it was under warranty, the particle got stuck. So he came in and it worked just fine afterwards again. But he took it out, replaced, like it's like this little tiny. I don't even know what it is. It's a little tiny part about that big, and it goes into a hose, and that's the sensor that tells the steam boiler that it needs to refill or that it's filled. So we replaced that. It was like a $20 part, and then it worked, and then it happened again, but I never had water coming out from the bottom. But the way they built the
Yeah.
machine, that is, if water does come, it just goes straight out of the machine. It doesn't impact anything. It doesn't affect anything like componently in the
Oh,
computer.
gotcha.
I don't know what happened, but
How many hours did you have left to your event when that happened?
the event was 6 hours and it happened 2 hours in. So
Oh, bummer.
about 4 hours.
Wow. So you just closed up for the day, huh?
Had to, yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah. Was that pretty early on with serving coffee, like when you got into the mobile business?
Yeah, that was probably my third or fourth event.
Okay.
So it was, I tell everybody there's going to be things that happen. I mean, things happen in any business. It happens in a brick and mortar, it happens in a mobile,
Mhm.
anything. And all you can do is stay calm and learn from experiences. It's easy to say, oh, yeah, just bring a second one, but I really can't afford just to buy a whole nother
Yeah.
machine to keep as extra that I'm not even used.
Yeah,
Uh,
no way.
Grinder is a little different story. Having a backup, like a less expensive
Sure.
grinder, that's one thing. But to have a
Yeah.
backup machine, that's a
Oh
heavy
yeah.
for sure.
I made the mistake of my second build. I was adding, let's see, I had a Rancilio Class 6, and when I installed it, everything was all finished in the trailer. I'm installing my equipment, filling my boiler, and as it's heating up, next thing you know, I just hear this like pss, pss. I'm like, what? And there's water shooting out the top of my machine. I'm like, what is going on? So I like shut it off really quick, and I throw a towel over the top, and like water's everywhere. Like I'm opening it up, and the blow off valve, like it overfilled and was just like spraying out. So I'm like, what is going on here? And then my mistake is just simple. I left the valve open, so water just kept coming
Oh.
in, and just so it got full, and so it was doing what it was supposed to do, so it wouldn't explode. And that blow off valve was, releasing steam and water, and so it was just a simple mistake.
Sometimes it's like the simplest things that we overlook, and it's just like
Oh
you
yeah.
feel at the moment it's like the biggest problem in the world.
Oh well, especially if it's during an event, you got a line of people. It's like the most defeating experience.
It's almost embarrassing. Like it shouldn't be,
It
but
is.
it's embarrassing.
No, it is. And it really makes you like think, all right, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I should just hang my hat up. I'm going to go back to selling insurance. That's what I used to do.
I bet you like the coffee bit because you do coffee. I know I talked to you prior to this video, but you do coffee
Yeah,
full time, right?
I do. Yeah. Yep. So coffee and building. That's it. Yep.
So how many builds a year do you think you do on average?
This last, well, so far of 2023, I've done 4. And
Or
then, yeah, so I'm shooting for, I've got 2 clients I'm working with right now. And then I have 3 builds of my own going on besides my horse trailer, which is insane. Yeah. Kind of just building them as needed. So trying to come up with some different, I guess, layouts with these, just make them a little more unique. But yeah, so 2 clients working with currently, 3 others on my own. And then I have for next year, 2024, I'm shooting for at least 6 builds. So, so
are you doing the
those,
build yourself?
I am 100% myself, with the exception of I started doing hiring a local electrician, just because I mean I can do it myself, but they're just so much faster at it, and it's just like, I mean, when I did my first trailer electrical, it took me about, I would say about 2 days, so probably 16 hours, a whole lot of research, still questioning everything along the way. Am I doing this right? And but luckily it turned out great. But I did the first one myself just because the quote I got was like $2,200 to run it, and then the way they were wanting to do it, I wasn't really happy with. So it ended up being about $400 of materials and 16 hours of my own time. Whereas now I hire an electrician, he's in and out in 4 hours, and it's about $1,000. So yeah,
So
well worth it.
does he give you a better deal because you do so many through him?
Yeah. So now, yeah, the very first one I did, he's actually a friend of my brother-in-law's.
Okay.
He's a full-time electrician over in Spokane, Washington. But he does a lot of work for my brother-in-law, does a lot of residential stuff. And so, yeah, he kind of gave me a deal on this one, knowing that I'm using them in the future too. So yeah, I got a quote from another guy and it was about $1,800. So that's still pretty, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's great. So yeah.
So if somebody's just starting out, they have no background in carpentry or anything, is it doable to do a trailer build with yourself or with somebody else? Is it how hard on a scale of 0 to 10, depending on how intricate they want it, but just to get up
Sure.
and going, how hard would it be for someone that has no prior knowledge?
I think you could still do it pretty simple. I mean, if you have the understanding of how tools work, at least, even if you haven't used them a lot. I mean, saws and stuff can be dangerous if you haven't used them. But I mean, if you could swing a hammer, use a drill, you could go the route of buying like ready-made cabinets and putting those in, versus building your own. For me, like with vintage trailers, building your own is a much better way, just because the shape of the trailers are so unique. A lot of times they're not square because they're super old, and so building is a much better way. But yeah, I mean, ready-made cabinets, it's a good option. Or a lot of those vintage trailers, you can literally just use the countertops that are already in there. If code allows it, you might just have to put different countertops in, or different service that are like easily cleanable, that kind of thing. So again, you can kind of start small with that too and work your way up. And then once you have more funds, hire people if you need to, DIY, get some handymen in there to do it. But if you are doing it yourself though, and you're not comfortable with electrical, that's something I would definitely hire out though, for sure. Plumbing is different. I mean, plumbing is worst case scenario, you get a leak, it's not something like electricity where you can shock and kill yourself possibly. So yeah,
A
plumbing
little bit
is
of a difference there.
yeah, surprisingly though, I think plumbing it's always more expensive than electrician, or not plumbers, but just all the plumbing fittings and everything, like material wise, when you figure, when I say plumbing, I figure water tanks, sinks, water pump, everything. But it's like, man, those fittings, PEX itself is cheap, but all the fittings are super expensive. I mean, it just adds up really fast.
So for code for you, how
Mhm.
big does your aisle have to be?
We actually don't have a requirement on that at all.
Oh,
It's crazy. So our first trailer that we did in Oregon, their codes we were in Springfield, Oregon, which is just the other side of the river of Eugene and Springfield, basically just divided by the river. But theirs were a little more strict, but we started right in 2020 when COVID happened. So we had like, a little more downtime, like inspectors weren't super busy. So I just followed they have a mobile food unit guidelines packet, and so I just followed that to a T, how to do everything. Even there, they didn't have an aisle width requirement, but everything else was fairly seems I would say strict compared to where I'm at now in Idaho. With like water tank size, hot water, fridge, that kind of thing. But I just did everything by the book, and the inspector came out and she was in and out in 5 minutes. She's like, everything looks good. The only thing I didn't have was my freshwater hose wasn't NSF. I just had like a regular garden hose. And she's like, yeah, as long as you're going to get, the blue or the white one, you're good. I'll just write down that you're going to get it. Here's your, you passed your inspection. So they were super laid back. But here in Idaho, so when we moved here, I called them, was like, hey, I have a mobile coffee shop. I need to get it inspected. They're like, well, are you serving food? I'm like, no, I'm just doing coffee. I was like, I might do some, prepackaged foods now and then. They're like, okay. They're like, so just coffee? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, what's the fee? And like, there's no fee. And I'm like, really? Like, what about the inspection? Like, you don't need an inspection. I'm like, are you serious? Like, yeah, like just get your yeah. They're like, just get your tax ID, pay your taxes. That's all we care about. So super, super laid back. Yeah. I think, so we're in Post Falls, which is the panhandle of Idaho, and we're in Kootenai County. So I think if you go further south, though, and you're down like Boise, their counties probably has different regulations, but up here they're just so relaxed. It's insane.
crazy.
Yeah. So literally tax ID is all I need. So I pay my taxes to them, to state. That's all I care about. Yep. And we
I,
have cottage law too. So you can make shelf stable items and sell those too. No problem.
so you said you do serve prepackaged items?
Every now and then I will. When I say prepackaged though, originally I was doing like some muffins and stuff that were like prepackaged. But after I found out that cottage law was, we were okay to build, to make food out of our home, we'll do like, just some baked goods, banana breads, cookies, that kind of thing, scones.
So how does one go about? Do they have to call the health department just to inform everybody to figure out your cottage laws? How did you find out how much you could make at your house before it was against the law?
I just did a Google search for cottage law and then put in my county. And then I also checked, kind of cross reference with my city too. And then there's actually a lot of information online that said, with just talking about shelf stable, which generally means it doesn't have to be refrigerated or maintain a hot temp. So I just kind of followed the guidelines. It had a list of foods that were okay. And then there were some gray areas of foods. So I just was like, well, I just won't do those really. But I was still really hesitant. And I was like, well, I don't want someone to come up and they're going to be complaining I have food for sale for whatever reason. And I don't have, like a sticker on the wall that says I'm good other than my tax ID because I don't need it. So I called anyway, my health department. I said, can I just get like a document saying college law is like good to go and you can sign off on it? He's like, yeah, for sure. And so he, sent me like a PDF with his signature on it saying I'm good to go. Yeah.
Wow, that's super nice. Because
Yeah,
here,
it's laid back.
here I think I paid 550 for the year to have our inspection done and everything are good to go. And then that was for a low risk. If I were to sell prepackaged goods, I think it goes up to 750. And so yeah, it's quite a bit more expensive, especially being able to do anything. Because I was thinking like cookies, scones, brownies, anything that's like quick grab and go that you can serve that
Yeah,
obviously caters to everybody.
for sure. That's actually a really good point you brought up though with the cost of your yearly cost because right now, if someone's in the process of doing their build and everything, and they want to open, even if their opening is going to be this year, I would not recommend paying that fee because when we were in Oregon, it's not on a rolling 12 months. It's like from January 1st to December 31st. So if I were to pay, let's say I was back in Oregon, theirs was only 400, so it wasn't too bad. But if I were to pay that $400 come January 1st, I got to pay another $400. So what is that? 2 months from now, 3 months from now. So
Really?
if someone's in that process right now, I would wait till the first of the year to get your inspection and all that, just because you're going to turn around and shell out some more money.
Yeah. And I know they're trying to work on it because like for us, we're registered under our county. So we're covered that $550, whatever it was, that's covered for the year for our county. But once we go out of the county, we have to call their inspection office and they have to give us the fee. And I think for a 1 day event for one of ours that we were going to do is like $75 and then a $15 like late application. So if that person reaches out to you, hey, we have an event next week and it's under a week, doesn't matter. You still have to pay the late fee plus that. So that's $90 plus generator plus your time plus
Oh yeah,
like it's plus you've already paid for the month. I know, or for the year. I know they're trying to get it to where once you pay it for the year, then you're good to go to any county in your like around your area in your state. And that's I
yeah,
feel
for
like that's
sure.
how it should be.
I agree 100%. If I go across, so we're just 5 minutes away from the Washington border. If I go across into Washington and want to serve over there, then yeah, I gotta pay there. Theirs is $1,000 a year, so it's
Jeez.
expensive. Yeah, and you have to do technically two inspections for Washington State. You have Labor and Industries, so they kind of just check off. They want to know like safety features of your electrical, if you're running propane, plumbing, that kind of thing. And then aside from that, depending on what county you're in, then you have your the county is your kind of your guidelines for your sink requirements, your water tank size, that sort of thing. Labor and Industries don't really care so much about the size, but they care about the safety of everything, which is good. But you got one fee. I think the L&I one is it's not too bad. It's $160, and then your county I don't know what the inspection is to a county through Washington because I haven't done it yet, but I know just in general to get your permit to sell from a food truck or coffee truck is $1,000 a year. So adds up very quick, very quick.
So if you wanted to do 2 events, you'd have to pay that for the year pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty crazy. Yeah.
That's yeah, that's definitely hard. So speaking of pricing for your menu, how do you stay aggressive with your prices for the people around you?
It's a good question. So first and foremost, I don't know how they do it, but I mentioned earlier there's a lot of those drive-through kiosks here, and I go through there sometimes, and I'm like, how do you guys make any money? Because they're like, they'll have a 20-ounce latte, flavored latte, and it's like 350. I'm like, what do you?
Is it good?
I don't understand. I mean, it's okay. I'm not a big fan. There's hardly any coffee up here in the Northwest that I've had that I actually enjoy. But I'm just like, how are they making any money? When you figure employees, your cost of your lot rent, whatever you're paying, lights, electricity, everything. I'm just like, and then the cost of goods, I mean, when I do my cost of goods on my drinks, I'm like, my cheapest drink is maybe just under $1. So, but when it comes to pricing mine, it was hard to increase my prices even. I mean, a lot of things have been going up in price, of course, but like most of my lot, I generally do one size. I keep things really simple. So with the exception of my drink my way, it's like a 12-ounce drink. But I usually do 16 ounce for hot drinks and 20-ounce cold drinks. And then I carry some 12-ounce cups for the other drinks, but usually just doing those 16 and 20. So I keep it simple, makes the line move a little faster too, because, they're not deciding. But so my 16-ounce lattes are $5.25. My mochas, oddly enough, so I use the mocha sauces, like the white mochas and the regular mocha. That's actually slightly cheaper. My cost of goods on those, so those are $5 for a 16-ounce, and same price for a 20-ounce because once you figure a 20-ounce cup and you add ice in there, it's really equivalent to about a 16-ounce liquid. Yeah, so that was kind of hard for me to increase my prices, and I'm like, man, I'm like $2 more than the kiosk down the street, but nobody ever complains. I think in all of my coffee history, when I first started in Oregon, I had one person that said I was kind of expensive, and I was like, oh, okay, sure. Everybody's got an opinion, I guess, right? But yeah, nobody complains about prices. They're almost everybody tips, whether it's cash or on their card. So it's like, I think it's just about the community too, and they're here to support you. So yeah.
Yeah, pretty much every one of our drinks are around 550. Do you charge tax or anything on yours?
So when I was at a regular location, when I first started in Oregon, when we first started, we were outside of an antique mall for like 3 months. And so I had my tax and everything turned on there. I remember it. Yeah, Oregon had tax. So I had tax on there, kept all kinds of coins and everything, to make up taxes for cash buyers and whatnot. But I decided when I do events, I turn my tax off and I just have everything in quarter amounts. And so all I have to do is keep quarters in cash besides my, random cards. So just keeps it simple. I mean, I'm eating a little bit of the tax, but overall it speeds up the process. It's easier in the long run by the end of the day. So yeah.
So when you do sales tax, do you have to pay that monthly, quarterly, or yearly?
I do. You have the option to do, I believe at shortest you could do, you could do quarterly, and that's what I do currently. Yeah, I don't think you can actually do yearly. They want you to do at least quarterly, but you might be able to do monthly as well.
Yeah, because I know when we went to ours, they wanted us to do monthly. So we do ours monthly.
Okay, that's actually not bad. I like that. Yeah, just to kind of get knocked out and kind of keep stuff on the side. Yeah.
You just got to make sure you save a little bit more because obviously you're going to be giving it from here to here.
Yeah, for sure. That's where people get into trouble is they think, oh, here's X amount in the drawer. And it's like, well, technically you only have this, this amount minus taxes. So it's like, yeah, you get in trouble really fast. You start spending that tax money.
Oh yeah. Yep. So we've had a really good conversation so far. Kind of to wrap the video up, what advice would you give to somebody who's wanting to start a mobile coffee business and also somebody who owns a mobile coffee business? What main advice would you give to somebody that is wanting to get into the coffee industry?
The biggest one is be prepared to wear many hats for sure. I honestly think after doing everything, Building the trailer is the easy part. It really is. Because after, I mean, this is coming from me with more of a construction background, so that could be different too. But okay, so once you have a trailer, even if you were to buy the trailer, you have the funds. I mean, that's just a starting point. You're the barista, you're the manager, you're the inventory specialist, you're the tax guy, you're the account. I mean, you're doing it all. There, you're the guy out making runs, picking up product and stocking the day before, breaking stuff down and setting up. So it is a lot of work. Social media, it's huge trying to, interact with people. I honestly, we don't get a whole lot of exposure through like Instagram, other than people that are interested in building. But like for event wise, I don't know. I think Facebook is way better for that. But yeah, just be prepared to wear many hats. For those that are existing, coffee truckers and trailer holders, if I strongly recommend to look into going with an off-grid system. Not necessarily, you don't have to use propane espresso machine like I do, but you can get battery systems that run two group 240-volt machines, run your whole system off batteries, no longer dealing with generator, noisy, dealing with gas and oil changes and so forth. So I'm a big advocate for using batteries. And if anyone's interested, kind of those that have paved the way for, or the company that's paved the way for it is a company called Jewel Case, and they're based out of Boise, Idaho. There is a guy down in Boise, actually. His name's Sid Gabi. He runs Slow River Coffee. He has like a Dodge Sprinter van, and his whole system is batteries too. So it can definitely be done. The initial cost is a little more, but I mean, it saves you a lot of headache in the long run, really.
So someone like that's really good advice. Someone like me, how much would a system like that be to run a two group 240-volt espresso machine?
Let's see. So with the last build I did running batteries, they had a propane espresso machine, so that barely used any electricity. But everything else, they had a nitro cold brew fridge, regular under counter fridge, their grinder, blender, drip coffee pot like an airpot brewer. So I think in total the watts, they only needed two batteries, which was about $10,000 with the inverter. If you factor in a 240-volt machine, that's going electricity with that instead of propane, you're probably going to need, I'm guessing, about two more batteries. So you're probably going to be in between the 15 to 20,000 range for batteries. But overall, if you reach out to Jewel Case, they give you a breakdown. This is what's going to cost you for batteries, but this is what you're looking at in cost to run your generator to, and they give you a comparison. So it's like after like year 5, you're already like in the green for going with batteries. So if you're planning on doing this more long term, it makes sense to go with batteries for sure.
So with the batteries, you have to charge them, obviously. You have to charge them.
Yes.
How long does it take to charge? Let's say you have 4 batteries.
Sure. It's actually, they charge really fast. So, and that's just with a regular, 120-volt plug. So, and you can charge them off solar too. So Slow River Coffee down in Boise, he's actually has solar panels for his. I haven't installed solar panels when I do it yet. I just plug in at home. And the cool thing is too, is that the way the wiring's set up when you have your inverter and your batteries is if you do have shore power access and you do want to plug in, when you plug in, it's charging the battery, but at the same time, it's bypassing and running all your electricity too. So it's really cool. I would say for 4 batteries, I mean, you're probably talking a couple hours and you're gonna be fully charged.
So does living in like the Midwest, the really cold weather, does it affect the life of the battery, and how long do they warranty the batteries for?
So the life of the battery, I don't know 100% that it affects it too much, but I do know that it's a good idea. They make I mean, Jewel Case doesn't recommend this, but that's something that I just recommend. They make heating pads for battery systems, just to kind of maintain their, so they don't get super cold. Because I think batteries, just like in your car, when you go to start a car in the super cold winter, it barely wants to start sometimes. So I think it's probably a smart idea to do it like a heating pad around them. A lot of people use them for like schoolie builds and camper van builds. But as for the life of the battery, if I remember right, it's a 10-year warranty per battery. And that's even the life cycle. After 10 years, it can still charge to like 80%, if I remember right, which is still really amazing.
So how big is, say, anybody who's wanting to get a battery and they're trying to figure out space wise, how big is each battery to where they can kind of fit it in?
Yeah, so I've used they have a wall mount battery system, and then they have ones that just like sit on the floor of your trailer. I've just used the trailer ones just because the wall mount ones, I think they're still pretty heavy. So I'm like, I don't know that like a vintage trailer can handle that kind of weight. So they stack on top of each other really nice. They're heavy. Again, this is something I didn't have to bolt down because they're not going anywhere. They're just heavy, but they are about 20 by 20 inches roughly, a square, maybe 20 by 22. And then the height of them is maybe 6 or 7 inches. Yeah. And then
Oh,
they
so
have
they're
like
pretty
kind of like,
big.
yeah, they're good size. So you got to plan for it. And then they have little indentions at each corner that the next battery kind of fits onto, like the leg of the battery. Super simple. Each battery just basically has two terminals, positive and negative. And so you're basically just wiring those together, and then that goes to your inverter, which is then wired to your electrical panel. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, if we're gonna end the podcast here, if you to just kind of give like the last words, what do you want everybody watching this podcast to know about Press On and what you guys are doing for the coffee industry, just and how they can find you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us at pressoncoffee.com. We can also have there's access to our social media links there as well, but we do nationwide trailer builds for all lower 48. We haven't done Hawaii or Alaska yet. So that might be a little additional cost to get out there, but so yeah, custom coffee trailer builds. You can bring your own trailer, or we can find a trailer for you, van, truck, whatever you want to do. But yeah, we we still do the vending of coffee too, but that's kind of what we're leaning more into, is just the building of the trailer. So really enjoy it. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, we look forward to working with you.
Well, we really appreciate the time that you took to do the podcast with us. I'll definitely be in touch with you on Instagram and keep following your builds. I mean, they're very nice. And even if somebody just runs across your website or your Instagram, they can just see really good ideas that you do. Just
Sure.
maybe if you're inspiring somebody else to start their mobile business. So it's always good. The coffee community has been probably the best community I've been in, and they're all just so friendly. Everyone's willing to give a hand and help someone when they're in need. So it's just been a really good experience, but it was really nice talking with you, and
You as well.
I'll definitely keep in touch on Instagram.
Excellent. Sounds good. Appreciate the interview.
Awesome. Thanks, Anthony.
Yep. Take care.